Good evening. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to our inaugural parent webinar. Today, we are going to be talking all things dyslexia because it is Dyslexia Awareness Month. Way! So before we get started, it would be really good to know where everyone. Can you drop in the comments where you're from? Let's see who's represented. So I'm saying hello from sunny Ghana. Where is everybody? So we are so happy to have you join us, and we are excited for what this evening will hold. We are anticipating an evening of shared learning experiences and support and celebration. So get your drink, get comfortable. We are ready. So tonight's webinar is looking at how we create a supportive environment for our child with dyslexia. And I am joined by an amazing team of colleagues who are going to help me deliver this webinar this evening. So in addition to welcoming all of you, I'd like to welcome the team and introduce everybody who's going to be with you. So I will start with myself. So my name is Justina Asafu-Adjaye, and I am the Inclusion Lead for Africa Dyslexia Organisation. So a little bit about me. I am also the founder and CEO of JEA Consultancy, which focuses on areas of special educational needs and inclusion in relation to education. With 30 plus years of experience working with children, young people and families, I am a seasoned educator, trainer, lecturer, parent advocate and SEND specialist, and I deliver in Ghana and the UK respectively. Joining me this evening are my colleagues. So first up is Samantha Barrett-Acquah. Samantha is the co-founder and director of the online tutoring company, Aspiring Minds Academy, and a professional counselor and leadership coach based in Accra, Ghana. She is passionate about fostering resilience and growth in children and adolescents. Samantha has worked with young people aged 7 to 21 most of her working career. Her experience includes working as a senior practitioner for the Youth Offending Service and a business mentoring program manager at a further education college in the UK, and a career and guidance counsellor here in Ghana. Welcome, Samantha. Alongside us is Barbara Mansua Brew. Barbara is a certified counsellor, academic administrator, and Cambridge exams officer at Alpha Beta Education Centres, with a deep passion for child and adolescent counselling. She has been working in the school space since September 2010, supporting students, parents, and educators. She has extensive experience. She is dedicated to fostering holistic development and creating nurturing environments for young people to thrive. Her expertise in academic administration, combined with her counselling background, uniquely equips her to guide students through both academic and personal challenges. So, good evening. This is your team this evening, and welcome again to everybody. So, why are we here and what are we doing? Let's start by setting just a foundation. So we don't want to make any assumptions that everybody knows what we're talking about. So first of all, let's talk about what is dyslexia. What is dyslexia and why do we have Dyslexia Awareness Month? So dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning disorder that affects the brain's ability to process language. It's estimated that 1 in 5 people have dyslexia to some degree, making it a common condition. People with dyslexia may have difficulty with decoding, fluency, and comprehension. Dyslexia is not related to intelligence, and I will repeat that. Dyslexia is not related to intelligence and can affect people of all ages and backgrounds. Individuals with this dyslexia can be highly successful in a variety of fields. Some of the key characteristics of dyslexia are difficulty with reading, writing, processing language, and it impacts on learning and everyday life. So that is what we're talking about. That is the characteristic of dyslexia. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Samantha, who's going to take you through the first segment of our webinar. Over to you, Sam.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Justina, and welcome once again to all of you joining us here this evening. So what I'm going to start with is looking at why a supportive environment matters. Why is it crucial that our child with dyslexia has a supportive home environment? So this is really a crucial thing because it directly impacts their academic success, their emotional well-being, and their overall development. So often you'll find that children with dyslexia, they'll struggle with reading, with writing, and other academic skills. So it's important that there's a supportive environment that encourages effort rather than focusing on maybe mistakes that they make. And this will help to boost their self-esteem when we're focusing on their efforts. When your child with dyslexia, when they feel understood and they feel valued, they're more willing to engage and take on challenges. Now, a child with dyslexia may feel frustrated, even anxious and embarrassed at times due to some of the difficulties that they may face because of the dyslexia. Now, when you have a supportive teacher, parents, even peers, this can help reduce these feelings of isolation, of anxiety, because we're offering them encouragement and we're showing patience. So this will help your child to feel both safe and accepted. Now, dyslexia presents ongoing challenges, but when you provide a nurturing environment that provides positive reinforcement and that motivates the child to keep trying, there's that sense of perseverance, of resilience, so they can be, developing their skills and recognizing that, okay, my efforts are amounting to something. So we want to encourage this perseverance and this resilience. Now, a child with dyslexia, they might struggle with self-expression. They may have challenges with communication. So when they're in an inclusive and an understanding environment, they then have an opportunity to develop social skills and feel far more comfortable interacting with others. So you may consider things like peer support. So helping them to foster friendships can reduce some of these feelings of isolation. Then also it encourages what we call a growth mindset. So when the child has parents, teachers, maybe even mentors that focus on the child's strengths and then also emphasizes the progress that they're making, this can create what we call or encourage what we call a growth mindset. So the child now is able to understand that their abilities can improve over time with effort. And it's also really essential to help them overcome some of the challenges that are associated with dyslexia. And then a supportive environment matters because we want to reduce something like stress and burnout. So if you have a child in an environment that is non-supportive, they may be feeling this constant pressure, to meet these expectations that we have of them as parents, as teachers, and the expectations may be very difficult for them. And of course, if we're going through stress, pressure, expectations that we can't meet, that's going to lead to stress. It may even lead to avoidance behaviors in the child. So we want to encourage a supportive environment that minimizes pressure and that promotes a healthier and more balanced learning approach. Okay, so now we've spoken about why a supportive home environment is important, but what are some of the ways we can create this supportive environment? So I'm going to touch on a few right now. So we're going to look at routines and structure. So first of all, a daily routine can help children know what to expect when there's a sense of stability that's been created by this set routine that we've put in place. Now, a routine should be consistent because this will help the child to concentrate better on their studies, remain focused. And when there's this stability and there's this focus, it can also reduce some of the anxieties that your child may feel because of the challenges that they're facing with dyslexia. So let's look at some simple routines you may want to consider implementing at home. So you can have a simple morning routine, which can include a wake-up time. Maybe there's a time for having breakfast. You may include morning devotion. So when you begin the day, when the child is able to begin their day with a set routine, it allows for a very calm start to the day. And then they're heading off to school, to their lessons in a calm way, no anxiety, less frustrations, they've got some focus. Now, in addition to this morning routine, you may want to implement a study schedule. Now, with a study schedule, you're actually establishing specific times in the day that's going to be dedicated to studying or to homework. So it could be as simple as when they arrive home from school, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., that time is set aside for their academic work. Again, this is reinforcing structure, it's reinforcing consistency, and it's complementing focus. And then to end the day, you may want to have a bedtime routine. So, okay, our child may have a bedtime routine of, say, 8:30 p.m. But something you can also include in this routine is maybe an hour before, you're ensuring that they don't have any devices, they're not having any screen time, before maybe an hour before lights out. And this will allow them to get good quality sleep and set them up for another constructive and stress-free day ahead. Okay, so we've looked at routine and structure. Now let's look at other ways in which we can create a supportive home environment by looking at positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement, what does that mean? It's just basically celebrating the small victories that your child is able to accomplish. And when you celebrate these small victories, it gives them that opportunity to feel confident, to feel motivated. We're reinforcing positive behaviors and we're encouraging progress rather than dwelling on mistakes, because we know our child with dyslexia has challenges. So we don't want to dwell on those too much. We want to encourage them to be resilient, allow them to know that their efforts are being recognized. So I want to identify just 3 ways that you can instill positive reinforcement into your child's life. So first of all, let's look at verbal praise. So what this is being intentional about acknowledging specific achievements. So this may be, okay, your child has, been able to work through a particular maths problem. You can say to them, oh, well done. I'm really proud of you for working through that maths problem. You've done very well. Or maybe they've been able to stay focused throughout their 1 hour study and homework time. So you actually identify exactly what it is that you're praising them for. So, oh, well done. You were able to stay focused and do your homework for a whole hour. I'm very proud of you. So verbal praise, we encourage that. Let's try and implement verbal praise into our child's lives. Now, we can also consider tangible rewards. So a tangible reward is implementing maybe a reward system where your child is able to earn points for tasks that they've completed. Or you may even want to make it fancy and have like a star chart where if they complete a certain number of activities or tasks, they get a certain number of stars. And then what you can do after they've collected the agreed amount of stars, you can reward them with, I don't know, something that they enjoy. Maybe it's extra screen time, more time on their PlayStation, or another favorite activity that they have. But it's a way of demonstrating to them that you've acknowledged that they've made the effort and they're being rewarded for those efforts. Then we can look at celebrating milestones. So this is looking at more long-term goals. It may be looking at their grade improvement throughout the term, or maybe they've completed a major project that's really taken a lot of time. So again, celebrate it. What is something special that they've always wanted to do? Maybe you want to celebrate as a family, go out for a meal, just demonstrate and reinforce that, yes, hard work actually pays off and you're acknowledging them for that hard work. Okay, so we've looked at routine and structure. We've looked at positive reinforcement. Now, something else that's also very important is looking at maybe having a homework strategy. So homework can be a really stressful time, not just for the child, but also for us as parents, trying to navigate the different tasks they have to do, encouraging them, motivating them through something that can be quite challenging for them. But if you employ certain strategies that maybe help them break up their tasks into more manageable chunks, use different techniques that will make the task of homework less overwhelming and less stressful. These are other ways that you can go towards supporting or creating a supportive home environment for your child. So I'm going to look at just 4 examples of homework strategies. So the first one is what we call chunking tasks. So chunking tasks is where you take a larger activity. So maybe they've got quite a large piece of homework. Maybe they need to complete a 8-page assignment or essay. And then you break it down into smaller, more manageable tasks with clear goals that they can achieve. So let's take this example of an 8-page essay. Maybe the first task will be, let's write the outline, and then you give them a time that they're going to do that by. So we're going to write the outline by Monday. And then maybe the next stage of it, the next chunk of this activity is drafting 1 section per day towards this 8-page assignment. So this is a good way of making the homework not seem so overwhelming, breaking the task down into more manageable, smaller activities that will allow your child to be more focused and just allow them to get through the task more easily. Then we've got multisensory learning techniques. So what we want to do here is encourage learning through the use of multiple senses. So we want to look at an activity. Let's take spelling. So your child has homework where they have to spell 10 words. You can utilize this multisensory learning technique by, first of all, maybe getting them to write the words down in a colorful highlighter or pen. So this way you're utilizing their sense of vision. So this is a visual activity. And then you can get them to say the words out loud. So after they've written the words in the colorful highlighter, let them repeat the words using their auditory skills. And then another activity that is really useful for our children with dyslexia is when we use tactile activities. So you can get a tray of sand, just a small tray of sand, and let the child trace the letters of the words they're spelling in the sand. Again, these are examples of strategies that can help homework time become more productive, more efficient, and less overwhelming. Okay, so then the third one is setting up a homework station. So this can be a good way to create a distraction-free homework zone in your house. It doesn't need to be a separate room. It can just be a table in a quiet area in your lounge or maybe in your kitchen. Set up a table dedicated for your child to do their homework. Make sure that they have all the necessary supplies that they need. So you want to make sure they have their stationery, their books, whether they're using dictionaries, whatever it may be, and have that as a dedicated space just for them. Quiet helps to promote concentration, and this concentration will encourage focus for your child. And then the last example I want to give for homework strategies is the use of timers. So there are many different timing techniques that you can use, but the one that I like to use even myself is called the Pomodoro technique. Now what this is where your child will use 25 minutes to work on an activity, and then they'll have a 5-minute break. And then they'll repeat this 25 minutes activity, then a 5-minute break. Now the 5-minute break may be just for them to get up and stretch their legs. They may go to the washroom. You can repeat this cycle maybe 3 times. So they'll do 3 rounds of 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest. And what this method does is it helps them to make the task more manageable. So it works hand in hand with the chunking, where you're breaking down the task into more manageable and clear goals. All of these are good techniques that you can think about maybe picking one or two that you may want to implement for your child. Okay, so we've spoken a bit about creating this supportive home environment. We want to make sure that we're supportive in the home with our child who is a child with dyslexia. But we also want to look at how we can manage their emotional well-being. Okay, this goes hand in hand with the supportive techniques that we've spoken about already. So emotional well-being, we all want to be concerned with the emotional well-being of our child. How can we do that? First of all, be patient. Yes, it can be easier said than done when we're dealing with challenges and, maybe some difficulties that, we're all learning to understand. But as much as possible, let's try and be patient and understanding of the struggles and the challenges that our child with dyslexia is going through. We want to be able to show empathy, recognize that they are actually facing difficulties, and we're acknowledging that we appreciate that they're facing these difficulties. Let's not minimize the challenges that they're experiencing. And sometimes this minimizing can be done when we're comparing them to other children, whether it's other children at home or children in school. We don't want to compare them. We want to offer reassurance and remind them that dyslexia doesn't define their intelligence or their potential. We want to just acknowledge that they just have a different style of learning and that they're not inferior. Okay, so we also want to encourage open communication. Let's listen actively to our child. Give them space to express how they're feeling. You may find that they have feelings of frustration, anxiety, insecurity, even anger because of the challenges they're facing. So let's give them that space to open up, to speak about how they're feeling, and allow them to, express themselves fully. Now, let's celebrate their strengths. Encouraging emotional well-being can also include celebrating the strengths and the efforts of our child. So we don't want to continually be focusing on the things that they're doing wrong or the things that they're having challenges with. Let's focus on the strengths. And this may be something completely different from their academic abilities. Maybe they're very artistic. Maybe they're creative. Maybe they're great with problem-solving skills. So let's recognize it and show them that the fact that they may be a child with dyslexia, it doesn't limit their abilities in other areas. And then we want to promote what we call a growth mindset. So let's emphasize improvement. Sometimes we always want to maybe focus on being perfect or getting everything 10 out of 10. But when we're working with children with dyslexia, we want to emphasize that step-by-step improvement, day by day, because this is what is going to encourage them to view challenges as an opportunity for growth. It will help to reinforce that idea that, yes, I can improve over time with practice. Now, we may want to think about teaching them some coping strategies. So when your child is becoming frustrated or they're having some anxiety issues, we want to think about, okay, what can we do to help them manage this frustration? So it could be helping them with some breathing exercises, helping them be mindful, be in the moment, focus on what they're doing. And then we want to try and avoid overloading them. So we know that our children with dyslexia, they learn in different ways. So we also have to be mindful and watch that, okay, are they getting exhausted? Are they feeling anxious doing this particular work? And then it may mean you'll have to now look at the activities again and restructure them so they don't become overwhelmed to the point that they no longer even want to try. So we may have to adjust our expectations and provide breaks so it's more supportive of our child and their well-being. And then let's balance work and play, okay? So let's ensure that amongst the academic work, they have time for activities that they really enjoy that can boost their self-confidence. So maybe they love playing basketball. Make sure within that week, they have the opportunity to go and really just express themselves, play basketball and just feel good about something that they really enjoy and that they're good at. And then last but by no means least, you can seek professional support. So maybe your child is experiencing some significant emotional distress. Now, when it comes to times like that, you may want to refer them to a counsellor or a therapist who can provide them with additional coping tools and then give them that additional emotional support that they may need. And in addition to that, it's not just our children with dyslexia that may need this support, but parents also managing these challenges may also need that support. And then, of course, you can join a dyslexia support group. So connecting with others who are also going through similar challenges, it can be reassuring knowing that you're not alone. It can give both you and your child the opportunity to see that others have successfully overcome some of these difficulties and they too can overcome them. So just in conclusion, I would say that supporting emotional well-being is a continuous process. It doesn't just start today and end tomorrow. And it involves building confidence, reducing stress, and fostering a positive, understanding atmosphere, which will be both at home and in school. Okay, so thank you for listening. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Barbara, who's going to speak about understanding dyslexia through your child's eyes. And please remember that the chat box is open, the comment section is open, where you can drop any comments or questions that you may have. Okay, Barbara.
Hi, thank you, Samantha. Hello, parents. So as we create awareness this month on dyslexia, I want us to understand dyslexia through your child's eye. So we focusing on academic challenges. That's what I want us to focus on. So when it comes to the academic of your child, you realize that when you look at this picture, there's a boy who is attempting to read and the words have become too much on his brain and he's trying to decode it. So dyslexia affects how the brain processes written languages. So for instance, difficulties decoding words, slow reading speed, spelling difficulties, troubling with reading comprehension. So the child might attempt to read, and these are the things that he faces. So when it comes like that, we need you, the parents, now that you are understanding dyslexia with this kind of lenses, you know that your child needs your support. And so whenever there's an assignment and you get the homework at home and you realize that, oh, for instance, James is supposed to read within 30 minutes and it's taking 40 minutes for him to even read 10 lines. Then it tells you that these are the challenges my child is going through. So as parents, we want to encourage you that we should simplify and break down tasks for our child with visual support. And so with that, the child knows that whenever I bring homework or it's an assignment, I have a supporting network at home who can help me break down my homework, my trying to break down the comprehension assignment that I've been given, so that at the end of the day, your child is sleeping in a joyful mood. Imagine a class that your child is being asked to compete with learners that can read in a space of 30 minutes. The speed is very fast, and your child cannot read. Your child becomes very frustrated. So with this case, we are asking parents to support their child with dyslexic friendly fonts so that your child can be able to read well, your child can be able to understand, so that when you collaborate with the school, you knowing that this is what you've observed at home, you collaborate, give feedback to your class teacher as to the previous assignments at home. You tell the teacher, this is what my child faced. And so the teachers and yourself are working to make sure that when your child comes to school, your child comes to an environment that is supportive. So this is one of the things that your child faces when it comes to academic challenges. Also, when it comes to schoolwork, we should look beyond academic work. We should be able to recognize that when it comes to outdoor games, activities, projects, my child is good at it. So when your child is coming to school and you're in the vehicle with your child, having your parent chat, you try to look at what is in the day, your timetable, what does it say? Then your child should be able to identify that, okay, we have arts, we have music, we have sports. Then as parents, you know that this is something that your child enjoys doing. So you try and encourage him that be all out when you are doing these activities. With that, your child comes to school knowing that he or she will be recognized, or he or she will be given a star because he can perform this task. So if you can put in the chat box your feedback on how your child responds to reading assignments, then we can know that, well, parents are feeding us with the information that we need to know. Parents are making us know that what are the real things on the ground, what are the challenges that we face on the ground. With that, we can design more personalized activities for your child when your child comes to the school environment. So the next thing we want to look at is the emotional and social difficulties of your child. Now, when it comes to the emotions of your child, we all come to the point that when we are having challenges with doing assignments, we become very frustrated because we feel that it's a simple task in which you are supposed to do. And so when that happens to your child is feeling frustrated, he's anxious because constant struggling with reading and writing tasks becomes challenging too for your child. So as parents, we want you to encourage your child, let your child know that I know you are putting a lot of effort and we are in it together. Once we know that you are supporting us from the house, your child comes with a positive mindset. Like Samantha said, emotional well-being is very key. So we should celebrate our child's success. We should know that when it comes to creativity, our children are very good at it. So whenever they are among their peers, we should encourage them that let them see your drawing, let them see your artwork, let them see your musical talents, let them see the things that you can showcase. With social difficulties, these are instances that our children sometimes feel that because they have a lot of things to do, when they meet with their peers, they tend to isolate because they are thinking of the assignment they need to complete, the notes they need to copy, the reading assignment that they are supposed to discuss with their peers. So once you have an open communication with your child, you should be able to find out about your child's friendship, how they are able to interact with their friends, their social interaction. Then you can role play, because these are instances that your child will be in a class and will feel much intimidated when he wants to answer a question or feel like asking a question. So at home, parents, what we can do is you can role play with your other siblings or your other children at home. So this is the case that your child take the role of a teacher, then your child begins to teach you, ask questions, then your child also sit down and you take turns trying to teach your child how to be more proactive in asking questions in class. Once they become very comfortable because the role playing has gone on at home, when they come to school, they meet their friends and they are able to interact very well with their friends and they become very mindful. We should practice mindful activities with our child to create that kind of emotional awareness and resilience. Now, when it comes to your child doing outdoor activities, parents, when you're at home, how you observe your children is different from how we observe them when they are in school. So when you give us the feedback that, oh, at home I observed that my child was doing this, was in the room alone singing, I checked his sewing skills, his artwork. When you give us that feedback, we always want them to lead those frontiers when they come to school. So when they come home, parents, I believe that we should have conversations with our child. What made them happy in school and what made them sad? How did they contribute in class? What did the teacher say? How did their friends accept them? with that, your child knows that, oh, mommy and daddy is very much concerned about what happens in school. So they always want to come and tell you how school went. And that is also very critical for their overall well-being. So we want to encourage parents that we should always make our children look out for what will mommy ask me, what will daddy ask me, how are they going to respond to my activities at school, and so that we reduce the frustration they face when they come to school. So with that in mind, we will move to the next slide, which talks about empathy and patience as parents. And as parents, we know that we are in a new academic term. And so we set our goals, we have expectations for our children. We spent about 5 weeks in school. And so they are going to write their monthly tests, their class tests, their homework that come. And therefore, we need to be in the shoes of our children. How is my child faring in class this term? He's in a new class. In the previous class, I had feedback from teachers. In the new class, once you've had assessments and you've gotten the reports that your child is a dyslexic child, and we encourage you to have discussions with your class teacher, the class teacher of your child, so that the teacher will have a fair idea of creating accommodations in the class. They'll be able to have patience for your child. They'll be able to know that when it comes to this particular task, James will be given extra time for him to complete the task. Now, when you put yourself in your child's shoes, will reduce the tendency of feeling that, oh, they do not want to put in their best effort. We also want to listen to them to reduce the child's frustration. Now, a listening ear for our children is very, very necessary. Once you listen to them, once you encourage them, once you tell them that I see how hard this is for you, but I believe in you, I know that you are going to do it. And we should have a daily check-in. We should encourage, I'm encouraging you to have a few minutes set aside to find out, was everything okay? How did you feel about this? Did your teacher create opportunity for you to have extended time? Then with that, we are very mindful. We know that when it comes to assignments and targets, it takes time. Every child and the pace at which they move. So with our dyslexic children, we should create a pace for them. After their monthly test, if the target was okay, they should get above 70%. And they get 60% or between 55 to 65%. I think it's a work in progress. So as parents, we should try and encourage them and say that it's good. I know that all that you are doing is towards the 70 that we've set for ourselves. And so we are celebrating the small wins. We are trying to make sure that we find the other areas which will calm their nerves. Now, when our children feel that their nerves are being calmed by how we give them that listening ear, they tend to do better because they know that mommy, daddy understands what I'm going through. They don't see me to be framing up with my performance. They don't see that I'm giving unnecessary excuses, but there's the support from my family, and this is something that will help us in achieving whatever we want to achieve as a family. So as parents, if these are some of the things that you face, I think we can put them in the chat box to find out how we were able to overcome these challenges in the previous academic year and this year, how the term have started. Is this something that we've given up? Do we still have patience for our children? How are we working towards the common goal of making our children feel part of the school environment? So with that aside, with the parents understanding the academic challenges of their children, they understanding the emotional and social difficulties they go through, they cultivating empathy and patience. Now you collaborate with the schools and teachers. The school is there for us all. Once you have an open communication with the educators, you've gotten your reports because that you were asked to have an assessment, you've gotten your reports, you come back to the school. It's an open door policy. These days, the schools, we all do well. We want to listen to our parents. We want our children to feel welcome in the school environment, the space. We are creating a supportive environment for you all. So once you have open communication, you tell them what is happening at home, what you have observed at home, what is going on in your child's life. The teacher is able to adjust their notes. They're able to know that, okay, when it comes to James, that is how I need to handle him in my class. These are the things that I need to get him involved in the classroom activities, so that when it comes to outdoor games, your child should be asked to lead the team, so that it won't always be the focus on academic work. The school environment is not just academic work, but everything in totality makes it great. You can make accommodations to meet with the academic coordinators, the administrators, the school counselors, because you have set an objective with your child at home. We want to know the objective and the goal and how best we can support you in the school environment. And some of the things that you observe at home, we might observe it differently in the school, because there are times that we those of us in the school environment, what we see is different from what the parents observe. So once you tell us, I have been observing this at home, and in school we also observe something, we work together, because it's a partnership we need to form as parents. We want your child to feel welcome in the school space. Also, as parents, please feel free to advocate for accommodations in the classroom. When I talk about accommodations, what do I mean? I'm talking about the time that you feel that your child needs an extended time when it comes to tests. Your child needs to do more hands-on activities. Your child needs more of, if your child is in a school, that they can give him an opportunity for reading on audio material, you should ask for that. The things that your child can watch on video plays, so that your child will understand what has been asked to, the tasks that he or she is supposed to do. If your child can get involved in coursework, that is more engaging, that is more of discussion, teachers taking their time to explain to them, we can do that. It even helps us to know the kind of program. If your child has finishing the junior high school, going to the senior high school, the kind of program your child will be good at, so that we do not force them to go to a particular profession if we have identified their skills and talents. Now, in the school space, you have to come have the learning plans for you. This is the time that we do a specialized individual education plan for your child, so that your child's routine of also making sure they pass the exams is different. When you come to the school environment and we discuss their reports, we come for open days, whatever the teachers have observed, this is when we tell you that, okay, looking at this, I believe that if your child is more attuned to this program, or if your child does this kind of assignment early in the morning or late afternoon or in the evening, if their child learns at this time doing this project, your child will be able to succeed in the school environment. Then we know that we can work together as one team. Learning plans are very, very important. And also, one thing is, if your child is writing an external exams and you collaborating with the schools, giving the schools feedback on what you've observed, the report, the assessment that you've done. Now we can also write to the examination bodies for them to give extended time, for them to give accommodations, and as a school, be able to decide on, okay, your child needs to select subjects. These are the subject areas that your child will do. Then the learning plans towards the success of your child in the exams is also put in place. With that, we know that your child will be very, very happy. And please feel free, you go to your child's school to have such meetings, and make sure that if they have a school counselor in the school, and anyone who supports the emotional and the social well-being of your child, please have that conversations and see how best your child will be supported in the school. So thank you very much. I'll hand over to Justina, who will be talking about parents and caregivers.
Good evening again. Thank you so much, Barbara. That was so insightful and helpful. And thank you also, Samantha. Okay, so we've spent some time looking at how we're supporting our children in the home, how we're navigating and building relationships and partnerships with the school. I want us to take a little time now and look at the needs of the parent caregiver. How are they supporting and providing the necessary support for their dyslexic child, and what impact that has. Now, we know that research tells us that the caring responsibilities disproportionately impact on women and mothers. And so therefore, I will talk a lot about the impact on mothers, but that's not to exclude fathers, because we know that fathers are out there doing the work as well and really trying to support their children. But when your child is not making the progress that you anticipate for them to make, or they're struggling in any shape or form, it really can impact you as a parent or a caregiver. And because when they're not settled, you're not settled. And so it's really important to be reflective and to be open and really review where you're at and what is happening for you. One of the biggest impacts navigating dyslexia and education is the impact it has on the relationships that you have. So the relationship with yourself, it is very easy to have that critical voice in your head blaming you for what is happening with your child. Is it something that I did? Is it how I'm raising them? Was it something that I ate when I was pregnant? Is it something in my family? Is it the other family's fault? It's very easy for that self-critical voice to really dominate what you are hearing, and you need to counteract that. It's critical that you counteract that voice, because no, it wasn't because of something you ate, it wasn't because of what you did in pregnancy, it's not something that's the fault of the family. It's a neurological makeup that nobody could plan for or factor in. And so actually, mama, dad, you are doing the absolute best with what you have, and you are doing great work, and you are supporting your child, and you are raising them, and you are affirming them. So it's really important that you recognize the impact on you as an individual, you as a parent. The other relationship that really impacts is your parenting journey and the relationship between you and your child. Because actually, you want your child to do really well. You want them to succeed. You want them to thrive. And sometimes that can convey itself in a way that really causes strain between you and your child. You might be arguing about what the child is doing. You might be wanting them to produce more and do more and organize themselves better. And it's something that they're just really struggling with and they can't. So it can cause a real strain in your parenting relationship, and you may find yourself in a space that you're not enjoying your child, you're not enjoying your parenting, you're not enjoying the relationship with your child, your communication may be really strained, so there's really nothing positive being exchanged between the two of you, because you want the best for them so much that you can also get frustrated and stressed out because things are not going the way that you would want them to go. And then the impact that can have on your marriage and your partnership, especially if the two of you are not aligned in terms of your understanding of dyslexia and the right support strategies to apply for your child. You might have conflicting views about how things are done. It might be that one of you wants to nurture, one of you wants to be a disciplinarian. It might be that one of you sees that there is additional need for additional support, and the other one may not think that there's anything to support. It might be one has an attitude of, what more can I do to help? And the other has an attitude, they just need to get on with it and do what they need to do. And that can cause real conflict in your relationship. And it's really important to be able to recognize that, acknowledge that, and look at what needs to be done to repair, support, and build up your relationship, because your partnership with your husband, your partner, your child's father is crucial, and you need to be working from the same page if you're going to effectively support your child to navigate the challenges that they're experiencing in their education. Supporting your dyslexic child can sometimes bring you into conflict with your wider family members, who may have very strong opinions about what you were doing, why you were doing it, and how you were doing it. older generations can, with all the best will and intention in the world, can be very opinionated in explaining to you what you're doing wrong, what you should be doing better, and how you're failing in your role as a parent. It's really important to be able to take those comments, those opinions with a pinch of salt, and be really clear about, actually, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I know the intended support that my child needs. I know what I want my child to achieve. I know what I want my child to hear. I know what I want my child to believe. And sometimes it might mean putting boundaries in place and actually limiting those voices that are negative, that are of an opinion that is not conducive or positive, and keeping them away from your child, making sure that they don't hear those things, because they're already going to be navigating their own self-image and their own self-identity, and they don't need additional voices that are telling them that they're failing or that they are wrong or that they are not enough. And the same goes for friendships. Friendships can become very strained. Sometimes we have friendships with people that compare. There's a hidden competition between the children, or that they just may not understand the journey that you're on, and the strain that you're experiencing, and the fears that you have, and the anxiety and concerns that you have. They may not recognize or understand that, because it's not something that they're living with. It's not something that they really have to think about. So it's really important to surround yourself with people that, even if they haven't got the same lived experiences as you, they at least have enough empathy to recognize that their experience differs to yours, and that's okay. But also that you need the support, you need the listening ear, and you need to be able to turn to your community and talk through what you are going through. So making sure that you're able to assess the relationships around you is really, really important, and a very big part of supporting you as a parent as you support your child. So self-care is one of the key ways of being able to look after yourself as the adult. What does self-care look like? Self-care is creating time for yourself unapologetically. And that might mean an hour on a Sunday where you tell your family, your friends, you are unavailable. That is your time, protected, non-negotiable. It might be the 2 hours or so after they go to bed. That is your protected time. It might be a Sunday, it might be a Saturday, it might be a half a day that you can get off work. Whatever time you are able to create, protect that and let everybody know, this is my time and it's non-negotiable. Create space so that that time can be fruitful. It might be that you lock yourself in the bedroom for that period of time. You might go out for a walk. You might go to the gym. You might go out for a nice meal or a coffee. You might go to the library, or somewhere, anywhere. Create a space that is yours, uninterrupted, peaceful, that you have time to just reflect and to just think and to process. And then make sure you have support. The saying goes, no man is an island, no woman is an island. And it's really important that you have a community that understands you, that can support you, that can empower you, that can celebrate you, and that can really lift you up. Because sometimes it can seem really dark, and sometimes it can be very, very lonely. And sometimes that fear is very, very real. What's going to happen to my child? What does their future look like? How can I do this? What am I going to do? Who can help me? Where is the next steps? How do I manage this? Those are all very valid and very real concerns. And you have every right to have a space where you can talk about those things without fear of judgment, without critique, without hearing the opinions of others who are not living that experience. Being in a space where people will just listen. Sometimes you just want someone to listen, because you can actually work out the solution yourself if you just have the space to talk it through. So create time, make space, have support for you, have support around you, and have support you can check into. One of the biggest areas for you as a parent, if you have a dyslexic child, is that you're going to have to learn to become an advocate. What's an advocate? An advocate is simply someone who speaks up for another person or another group of people. So you are going to be your child's advocate. You are the one that's going to speak up for your child. for your child to get the support that they need. So how do I go about doing that? The first thing you need to do is you need to sit down and really think, what does my child need to thrive? For my child to have peace of mind, for my child to be happy, for my child to want to learn, engage in learning, to take part in activities outside of school, to have friends, to socialize, what does my child need to thrive? And once you know what your child needs to thrive, the next step is identifying what do you need to provide in order to help with that? What do you need to provide in order for your child to access the things that they need to thrive? And then once you have that, start to look at what can the school do to support my child? So in that list of what I've identified as my child needs to thrive, what can the school do to support that process? And are there any additional resources that I have at home that I can give to the school to help my child? Or I can have at home to continue the support that my child needs? So is that reading pains, for example? Is that appropriate pens? Is it appropriate reading material? Is it making sure that, my child gets the right support that they need when they are in school? What does your child need to thrive? Who can help you to achieve that? What can the school do? What can you do at home? Those are the key questions that you want to be asking yourself. And have a journal, write it all down, keep a record of it, keep track of what it is that you're identifying as the need. And then what you need to do as a parent is you need to manage your expectations. Now, as a parent, when our children are born, as they navigate through life, we all have expectations. We have what we want them to be when they grow up. We want the kind of character we want them to have. We have all of these visions and these ambitions and these dreams for our children, and they're not wrong, but we need to manage them. So when it comes to classwork, how much can my child do? Now, given that dyslexia is a learning difference that impacts the ability to access written word, to process and put down on paper, to read with fluency and understanding, how much can my child do in the classroom? Can I have a conversation with his teacher, her teacher, to say, right, in the classroom, I think my child can manage this amount. How can we support them to be able to do that without them being labeled as lazy or not trying, and without them being ridiculed or made to feel different to their peers? When it comes to homework, what does homework look like for my child? Is my child receiving the same amount of homework as children who don't have dyslexia are receiving? Because if they are, that's disproportionate and it's unfair. It's setting your child up in a way that doesn't take into account their needs and their learning difference. It will be a bit like breaking your leg and it's sports day, and your teacher says, you know what, you're part of this class, you still need to run the 100 meters. And you say, but I've got crutches. And they say, no, the rest of your class are doing it, you need to do it. Having that attitude from a teacher is so, so damaging to our young people. And so having a conversation to say, look, if you are sending homework home, these are the criteria you need to consider. One, they can't be doing the same amount of work as the other children. Break it down, change it up. We call it differentiation. Differentiate, look at a different way that they can do it. If you're sending text home, please make sure that it's of a good enough size that they can read. Please make sure that it's printed eligibly. Don't photocopy things that are blurred and they're going to have even more trouble reading. Do not give loads of text work when there's other ways they can deliver that learning outcome. Learn to manage your expectation when it comes to exams and assessments. Exams create anxiety, stress, and apprehension anyway. Couple that with the fact that you know and understand that you have dyslexia. Or you may not have had the diagnosis yet, but you know that you struggle when it comes to reading and writing. And so when it comes to exams, you are even more anxious. So manage the expectations for you and for your child. How can they do in exams? Is there any additional support that they can receive during assessment season, during the exams? Are there accommodations that can be put in place? Will they get extra reading time? Will they get a scriber? Can they get a reader? Can they use assistive technology? Can they type it on a laptop instead of writing it? Ask the teacher all of these questions and let the teacher go and find out and do the research and find what accommodations can be put in place for your child. And then manage your expectations around progression. Dyslexic children are extremely creative, innovative, outside of the box thinkers. Their progression may not look the same as the typical child who doesn't have dyslexia. So manage your expectations around progression. How are they going to be moving forward? If your child is in a school environment where assessment determines their next stage of education, what does that look like for your child? This is where you advocate. Is it fair to keep your child behind a year, behind 2 years, because they can't do the assessments that are not being geared for them? Why are they being held behind? Can they be given the support and make the progress with the rest of their peers? Do they have to do all the exams that are being put forward, or can they do a selective amount of them, which is more manageable, which is more accessible? Are you anticipating that they are going to become lawyers, doctors, astronauts? If so, is that their ambition for themselves? And if it's not, talk to them and find out what their ambition is. And if it is, what support do you need to put in place to enable them to live that out and experience that? It is really important that in managing your expectations as a parent, you can role model for your child and help your child manage their expectations of themselves. And then therefore, collectively, you can help the teachers manage the expectations as well for your child. And do not be afraid to speak up for them. Do not be afraid to speak up for your child with the school, with the teacher, to say, actually, this is what my child's needs are. So we've looked at what we need to do at home to create a home environment for our child. We've looked at how we as parents support that journey, how we work with the schools. We've looked at how us as parents can take care of ourselves so that we can be the best support, foundational, cheerleading, number one fan of our children and advocates for our children. So, what now? So, what we have done is we've collated some information that we are going to share with you of websites, resources that will help you on this journey. But we also have some time now for questions and answers. And I know that there's been some really amazing questions put in the chat. And if there are any more questions, please jot it in the chat so we can try and capture as much of it and answer them for you in the time that we have left. And anything that we miss that we're not able to, we will endeavor to come back to you. And also put in the chat, should we do this again? Has it been helpful? Has it been helpful having this webinar? And should we do it again? And if we do it again, what should we cover? What do you want to hear as parents, caregivers, educators, interested adults? What else do we need to do to support this community? Because we really want to make sure we empower you and we give you all the information and tools and support that we can as an organization so that you can help the children in your care thrive and be the very best versions of themselves. So we are going to open up for questions, and Barbara and Samantha are going to rejoin me, and we are going to jump into the chat and we are going to see what you guys have been saying. Okay, so ladies, are there any particular questions that you want to kickstart off with? Okay, so we've got one. What are the early symptoms of dyslexia, and did it have a specific medicine as in the other illnesses? Okay, I'd like to take that one if that's okay. So first off, I guess one of the things that would be really helpful to clarify is that dyslexia is not an illness, so there isn't a medicine that you can take to cure it. Dyslexia is a neurological makeup, so the neurons in your brain, how they are made up, and so it's something that we're born with. So there isn't any medication that you can take to cure it. What you can do is you can get intervention and support strategies that will help you manage it and navigate it. We talk about early intervention. The earlier children and young people get support to navigate the hurdles that they have, the better it is for them. And dyslexia presents itself very differently for every person. So as much as it does center around reading, writing, processing, comprehension, those kind of skills, every dyslexic person will have a different way that it manifests itself, and their needs will look slightly different. So as young as 2, 1.5, once children are able to just come into experience a relationship with letters and text, you should be able to pick up very quickly where things are happening that you think, oh, okay, let me monitor this very carefully. So are children not able to recognize letters, or jumbling up letters, or forgetting? They might know it today, but then they don't know it tomorrow, or in a couple of days, they don't remember it, or the next week. Are they struggling to retain knowledge like phonics? They're doing phonics, but they can't remember it. They can't retain that information. Are they doing things like, when they do start to have emergent writing, are they writing things back to front? Are they mixing up words? Are there common words that by that age and stage of development they should know how to write, but they're really struggling with it? Those are some of the common early signs that you want to be looking out for. So in early years, as children are learning about their ABCs, and they're learning about their numbers, or their literacy and numeracy, are there any particular children that are really struggling in those lessons? They're struggling to focus, struggling with attention, struggling with retention, holding the information, recalling it. You start to keep an eye on those children, and you start to look at what other interventions can you put in place to help them solidify the learning that you're trying to get them to access. So I hope that is helpful as a starting point. So ladies, did you have a question that you'd picked up that you want us to cover?
Not a question, but just encouragement in the chat. Someone has said we need more of these lessons, please. Others saying that the session has been informative and we should have more. So that's positive and encouraging, because we're all about raising awareness. And so we're happy that this first session has been useful to many of you.
Awesome. Okay, I see a question here from Harrington. Thank you so much, Harrington. What are the most effective strategies and tools for supporting individuals with dyslexia in both educational and professional environments? So do either of you want to take that, and I can jump in, because I feel like I've been talking too much. People probably get tired of my voice, but I can jump in.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So some of the most effective strategies and tools for supporting individuals with dyslexia in educational setting are early intervention settings and regular early intervention settings. So I always really encourage teachers to ensure that reading, letter recognition, phonics, engagement with strategies that allow children to learn and repeat are on the timetable. So every single day, at least 20 minutes where you spend learning about letter formation, blending words, spelling strategies, reading, really, really important. One of the skills around memory is, the memory is a muscle, and the muscle needs to be worked. And so you need to be regularly doing things to solidify and consolidate. You also need to be building in strategies into your teaching styles, so that it continually gives opportunity to reinforce and introduce learning concepts that they can use to decode, to recognize, to build up their word bank, their understanding. And so not teaching everyone one way is really, really important. Having a multi-sensory approach to teaching is really, really crucial. So some children need to be very active in their learning and doing stuff. Some children can hear and they'll pick it up. Some children need to see and they'll pick it up. Some children need to do a bit of both and they'll pick it up. So it's really important that your classroom caters to all of those different ways of receiving information. You know, Do they have to be sitting at the desk and the table to be doing that piece of work? Can they stand up to do it? Can they learn through song? Can they learn through poems and plays? Can they learn through doing things? Can they learn through videos? Can they learn as well as the traditional pen and paper? Can they do, you know, forming letters in the sand and then you being able to reinforce that learning process, those things? But you also have resources that can help you. And again, a lot of these are contingent on where you are in the world and how much access you have to them. So I love reading panes. So reading panes are colored plastic and they come in different sizes. You have an A4 sheet, you have small strips and then medium-sized strips that you can put over the words, and it helps to just uplift the words so that it's easier for them to read. Audiobooks alongside written books, really, really helpful as well. But also understanding the stage of learning your child is at. So just because they're 9 doesn't mean that things that were really designed for 5-year-olds is not going to be supportive, especially if their skills are very foundational and they're trying to build their foundation. Because if you don't build a strong foundation, it's very hard to add on. It's very hard to extend. So those are the advice that I would give. So ladies, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So I just wanted to add, coming from the point of view as a counsellor, that having therapy or a counsellor is another form of support, because often you will find, maybe even with our children who have been assessed and they've identified that they're dyslexic, leading up to that assessment, maybe they've been isolated or they've been called some unkind words because maybe parents or teachers haven't understood what the challenge was. So yes, now they maybe have been assessed and they're getting the support academically, but what about the emotional distress that they had gone through prior to actually receiving their positive assessment as having dyslexia? So sometimes we have to consider working with our children with their emotions, their self-esteem, all of this, which may have been kind of crushed or brought down because we weren't aware that they were suffering with dyslexia. So where we've been comparing them to another sibling or other children in the class, not knowing that they have a completely different way of learning and they have different needs. So I just wanted to highlight that, we as counsellors are also another tool of support for the children.
100%. Thank you so much. The other thing I wanted to add, and I think there was a question earlier on in the evening that I saw, was to just explain that no two people with dyslexia are the same. Dyslexia is a spectrum and it impacts so differently for everybody. So you'll have somebody who the impact of their dyslexia is quite minimal. They are able to read, they are able to write. There may be like challenges they have around spelling, grammar, presentation of their work, understanding. And then you can go to the real extreme, the other extreme, where actually they struggle to learn to read and to write, and they can move on in years and still not be able to pick that up. So even our executive director, Rosalind, always shares her story that she didn't learn to read until she was 17. And so imagine all of those years of in education and battling that thing. And when I say battling that thing, I'm more talking about the attitudes that would have been displayed towards her, and the lack of support that would have been there, which meant that it wasn't picked up until much later. And so it's really, really important that we use our professional observation skills within education and really pick up where we see children are struggling, rather than assuming the child is just being stubborn or the child's just being lazy or the child just can't learn or doesn't want to learn. We need to start looking at things differently and saying, actually, what if the child can't learn because the way that I am teaching is the barrier? And I know that's really hard for a lot of professionals to accept and recognize, because for some reason we just really assume that we kind of know all the answers and we've got it right. But sometimes we are the barrier and we are the problem, because we are so rigid in how we do things. This is how we do it and that's the end of it. But we also need to really look at the attitudes that we present and what that barrier. So actually, a strategy within education is around changing our attitude and making sure that we educate and train ourselves to be more aware, to be more inclusive and more understanding, and to recognize when a child is not making progress, you have the responsibility to do something about it. It's not the child's responsibility to try and fix what they can't learn in your classroom. You have that responsibility. You are the educator. So yeah, so just kind of to clarify that. So let's look at some more questions. How can we prepare the mind of a grown child for different kind of intervention for a dyslexic learner? That is such a good question, because once you start working with older children, you now need to deal with identity, perception, their own validation as an individual, and the negative messages that they would have received for quite a significant amount of time because they're an older child. So I think one of the first things to do is to look at their own understanding and to be really sure that, to make sure that they understand that there's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken. They're not a deficit in any way. They are not a problem. They learn differently, and unfortunately, we have an education system worldwide that was never designed for them. And therefore, the issue isn't them. The issue is the system that they have to operate in, and the system is stacked against them. And they need to understand that they are not the issue. And then when you get to that point, you then need to start putting the interventions in, and you do it in a way that really respects their self-esteem and their emotional well-being. So you wouldn't do interventions in front of their peers. You wouldn't draw attention to them in front of their peers. You wouldn't ridicule them or communicate in any way to make them seem that they're different or feel that they're different. You would make sure it's done on a one-to-one basis in a private space where they can have the confidence to really explore. Because if you are struggling with something, the worst thing that can happen is that everyone is watching you struggle. So as teachers, don't make everyone read out loud, because some people, their reading skills are not at the level of others. And when you do that, you just put undue pressure on children, and you expose children in a way that's not necessary. So actually, they don't need to read out loud in class. They can read, they're reading along. You as the teacher can go along to each child and check for their understanding, check where they are, and know the progress they are making. Don't ask them, don't put on a board. Like I see a lot of teachers, they put progression on the board for everybody to see. They see the goals that the children are working towards. They'll put it on the board for everybody to see. Understand confidentiality and privacy is really, really important. When you're a teenager, these things are crucial. How people think of you, how your friends look at you are really, really important. And we have to look at the mental well-being of our students, because they're already grappling with the fact that they're not doing as well as their peers. They know that. You don't have to tell them, they know. So you ridiculing them or exposing it just makes it worse. So I think it's really important, and that's where you tap into the services of my colleagues like Samantha and Barbara, because actually, how do you build the emotional resilience for these young people, given the context that they're working in? What tools can you apply? Get advice from them. Like, what can I do in my classroom to make my children feel safe, psychologically safe to try? Because if a child doesn't feel psychologically safe to try, they are going to disrupt your class. They are going to hide. They're going to present with behaviors that will take you off task, that you can't even complete your lesson, because they need to distract you from the fact that you've just asked them to do something that has filled them with so much dread. So much dread. They are so scared. So don't put them in that position. Be sensitive and be mindful. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, Folashedi, sorry, we haven't answered your question. Please, could you put it in the chat again? Because we might have just gone past it. So please put it in the chat again so that we can come to it. Apologies. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay. I'm going to hand this one to you, Barbara. How do parents become effective advocates for their children without it seeming to teachers that that they're asking for their kids to be shown favoritism, especially in the Ghanaian school setting?
Thank you, Justina. So, becoming effective advocates without it seem showing for favoritism. Okay, so like I said, communication is key. Once you are able to communicate with your class, the teacher of your ward, that this is the situation, this is what I've observed, there's an assessment, this is the report. So how can we journey together to make sure that my child is supported in the class? With that, the parent is not asking too much from the school. The school now understand the angle from which the parent is coming from. They sit down together, have a plan, and see how best they can support the learner. Because once you are in the school environment, the child cannot be singled out and left on their own to survive. They have to have a plan for your child to be part of the school environment. So let's have conversations. You can meet with the academic coordinator of the school. If you feel that the class teacher feels that every time you come to drop your child in class, you have something to say, then we can move beyond the class teacher and talk to the academic coordinator, talk to the vice principal, talk to the administrators, so that if they can have a meeting, a joint meeting. I explained earlier on that it's a partnership, because this is the investment you are making. This is how you want your child to feel comfortable in the school space. So everything that you have identified, because if you're at home and you observe some of the things your child does, as likely the teacher has also observed something different from what you are saying. So once you give feedback to the teacher also give you feedback, you are working together as a team, then we should be able to know that there will be support. So communication is key. Once we talk about it and we get the other school authorities being involved and drawing a plan, an objective for how we want our child to come out at every point in time, probably can set objective weekly targets. Okay, at the end of the week, this is how my child fared in class. This is what the teacher told me. This is how we are working towards it. There can be homework, because sometimes the teacher will say that, okay, once you have identified this at home, I want you to give me feedback on this particular aspect, probably the social aspect of your child, because the feedback is in when it comes to social aspects. At home, my child is doing well, but in school, your child is isolated. So can you try something? Can you engage in conversations with your child why he doesn't want to open up in school? Once you become your child's buddy and they have that conversation, you can feed back to the school and tell them that, well, my child feels intimidated because when he wants to talk in class, the other peers laugh at me. Then you'll be able to feed that to the teacher. Then the teacher is working to a common goal. So I think that should help when we go into that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Samantha? Or we can go on to the next question?
I think you can move on to the next question.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you for Shade. Thank you so much for putting the question back up. So it's not a medical condition, as I just read it here. Well, this seems discouraging, but do children get over it? Do they outgrow it over time? Does the level of mildness or seriousness determine how easy or difficult it will be to manage? Okay, so yes, it's not a medical condition. It's the way that our brains are wired. So it shouldn't be discouraging. It's just a different way of thinking and a different way of learning. Do children get over it? No. However, with the right strategies, interventions, and support, children learn to develop how to manage it, and the impact of it is lessened over time because those interventions and support are put in place. Do they outgrow it over time? No. But again, like I said, the strategies means that they manage it better. Knowledge is power. Once you know how you learn, the best way that you learn, and what is effective for you, you then become your own self-advocate. So you know that if you've got to do, for example, you've got to write an essay, you know that you're not going to be able to sit down and write, pages and pages of essay. But what you can do is you can just split it and do a bit at a time. maybe you just focus on doing the introduction. Maybe you'll use technology to help you. You'll use text to speech, sorry, speech to text. So you'll speak it into your laptop or your phone dictation, and it will type it up for you. And then you'll just have to look at the punctuation. Maybe you use apps, things like Grammarly, that will help construct your sentences to make sure that they're grammatically correct. There are strategies that you will adopt that will help you, that will make life easier and more manageable as you move on in your life journey. Does the level of mildness or seriousness determine how easy or difficult it will be to manage? No, what determines it is how early enough you get the intervention, which is why we are always screaming early intervention, early intervention, early intervention. The first 5 years of a child's life are the most crucial, where all of their foundational knowledge and skills are set. So if you think about building a house, we all know that if you're going to build a house, you need to build a very solid foundation. And if you don't, your house is not safe and it could topple over at some point. The same goes for children's learning and development. Those 5 years, the foundational building blocks for learning are made. So if you're able to get in those first 5 years to intervene and to put the additional support in, you set your child up with a much, much stronger predisposition to kind of move on and be successful. If you don't get it in that 0 to 5 bracket, as close to 5 as you can is really, really helpful. And so the management of it is really going to be dependent on what kind of intervention is put in place, how soon it's put in place, how effective it is, but also the emotional resilience and the emotional intelligence that comes along with that for that young person, so that they're able to say or recognize what they can do, what they can't do, and what can help them with the areas that they can't do. So I hope that answers your question, Folashade. Please do jump in, ladies, if there's anything that I've missed that you want to add as we go through. So, Deborah, thank you so much for your question. Yes?
Sorry, Justina, just to go back to Folashade and her feelings of discouragement, I think it would be good, maybe you can share just some of the stories of maybe well-known persons with dyslexia and how they've succeeded and how they've been able to progress. Even our own Rosalind, you know, it was very late when it was identified that she was dyslexic, but she has been able to manage it, as you have identified, and is successful. So there shouldn't be discouragement. It should be, okay, now that I have the awareness, how do we go about navigating, making sure my child has the best opportunities or the best chance to work through their challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you did it. You did. Yeah, absolutely. We have some really famous people who are dyslexic who have made, I mean, obviously everybody cites Richard Branson as a very well-known dyslexic who has gone on to, you know, be really successful. But again, it's because he was able and supported to be himself and to think outside the box and to not go down the traditional route. So his creativity was allowed to flourish and he became who he is as a result of it. So it's recognizing that there's not one way to learn and there's not one way to be in school or in a class, and that we can actually learn in multiple different ways. And any support or adjustments you make in your classroom to support a dyslexic child supports every single child in that classroom. Because when you make those adjustments, every child benefits from it. Because there are children who are not dyslexic who may just find that the multisensory approach to learning just suits them better. They just like it and they thrive in that environment. So don't ever think that, oh my gosh, I've got a dyslexic child in my classroom, so now all my other students are going to suffer. No, if you change your approach and the way that you teach, all of your children will thrive. So I think we had Deborah's question. We have learners who started school pretty late and that has affected their reading, writing and speaking. With such learners, how do we test them for dyslexia? So I would advise that you have a screening tool, and there are many screening tools. And if you go on our website, you'll find one. But there are many screening tools that you can use if you want to really determine if the child could have dyslexia. Obviously, you need a qualified practitioner who's able to actually do the diagnosis, but the screening is you're able to do. And I would encourage every teacher to undertake basic dyslexia training, just so that it gives you the insight and the awareness that you can bring to your classroom, and also parents. And I know right now there's an organization called Nessie, and they're doing a promotion for this Dyslexia Awareness Month, where their training is free. So go and grab it while it's free and do that. The other thing you can also do is your general assessments. As teachers, you would have, I hope, built-in assessment into your teaching. So for every activity that you do, you're going to want to know, how successful was it? Did they meet the outcomes that I intended them to meet? How well did they do? Is there anything I need to change? So from your own assessment, you'll be able to see the children that really did well with it, the children that struggled, the children that were okay, and the children that couldn't do it. And then you go back and you look at, okay, what else can I put in place to support those children? So when you do your weekly spelling tests or your daily spelling tests, when you do your one-to-one reading, when you do your writing and comprehension, you will see from just marking the work of children, those that are struggling to be able to complete. That's your first assessment that you have. There you have, actually, this child is really struggling. Let me see what else I can put in place, what I can change. And even with those things you put in place, what you change, if they're still struggling, then you may need to think about, okay, let me just double check if there is anything else happening. You rule out all the obvious things, have they had their eyes tested? Are they sitting close enough to the board? Are there any environmental things that I can remove that will make it easier to see whether or not, is this a difficulty, or is it just that the environment is not supporting them? And then you do the screening. And when you do the screening, you're then able to go to a parent and be able to say, this is the areas of concern that I've had. I've been monitoring it for a while. This is support that I've been putting in place, but it hasn't addressed the concern. We've undertaken some screening, and we think it would be beneficial for your child to maybe be formally assessed for dyslexia, and explain what dyslexia is, and then take it from there. But it's really important that you don't go and say to parent, I think your child is dyslexic, go and get them tested, because you don't know that. The screening just gives it an indication. And also, parents will become very defensive if you come and just fling these words and labels at them. So you need to be factual and present the information as, this was my concern, this is what I did about it, I'm still concerned, I'd like us to do something more, can we look at doing this instead? So that's my advice that I would give you. Your own assessment as a teacher, if those, your adjustments, if those are still not working, screening, and if that flags up, because the screening will tell you, yes, there is a likelihood that this child is dyslexic, they need to be formally assessed, and then you take it from there. Yeah, so let's see what other questions we've got. How often can you, I think that is, assess your dyslexic child? So it depends what you mean by assess. What is it that you're assessing? So after every learning experience, you want to know, how did they get on with it? Did they do what you intended them to do? Did they enjoy it? Did they flourish in it? Did they struggle? That doesn't require a formal assessment. That just requires you to kind of do your own evaluation of how well that child engaged in that piece of work. And then you do the necessary adjustments that you need. Formal assessment, I imagine, would come when you do your termly assessment or end of subject. End of subject assessment. But a formal assessment, once it's done, you don't need to reassess a child. So please do chime in, ladies, and let me add to that if there's any thoughts that you've got on how often you can assess your dyslexic child.
Hi, Justina. So in my submission, I also made the proposal of the daily check-in. So you ask your child, how was school today? What did you enjoy doing? How was your lesson? How often could you read a particular subject, your understanding level? So with that one, I think once the parents engage in that conversation with the child, they should be able to know that, okay, there's an improvement, there's a decline, there's come to a halt, then the parent can be able to know that, okay, this particular day, based on the timetable, my child is able to perform well in class, or based on this activity, my child is able to pick up in class. So probably we can look at the daily checks, the weekly checks to support that parent.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to give this to one of you ladies. How does a parent handle when a child starts to be self-conscious that she's not doing well in school and starts to ask questions as to why am I always having bad grades?
I think that one's for you, Barbara.
Okay, Sam, I'll start and you continue. Okay, so with that particular aspect, then it goes beyond working on the academic aspect. You have to work on the emotional well-being of the child, because when the child is asking questions, this when, as Samantha said, if you meet with the school counselor, we will come out with a goal. What do you want to achieve as a child? Because for this case, it's probably be someone in upper primary or secondary school. So this child can be able to express themselves, to know that, okay, this is how I feel when I come to school, and this is what I face. So with that in mind, then we should be able to know that, okay, we can explain whatever challenges you are going through, because the formal assessment has been done, and these are the challenges that you go through. You have challenges when it comes to reading and writing, but there are levels of it. So once we know the level to which this particular child is facing, then we'll be able to draw a learning strategy for that learner, so that the learner do not look at the bigger picture of getting 90 and above, 80 and above. We should be able to know that, okay, what is the grade that you want to achieve with this particular test they want to write? If the learner says that, okay, I have been working within the 40s and the 50s, at least if I get between 60 and 70, then it should be able to make me feel fulfilled in class. Then we sit down and draw a plan. How do you study? Do you have your routine? Do you feel that you need to study everything at a go? So the learning strategy also helps. Once we are able to break it down, once we're able to know that, okay, when it comes to reading, you need to do more of audio listening, then we realize that, do more of coursework, do more of group discussion, know how to write your notes, so that that child is intentional about working towards a preferred grade, rather than wanting to get the higher grade. So it's step by step, trying to make sure that the child does well in school. So this is how I want to explain the question.
And I think
Awesome.
I would
Thank
just
you so
follow,
much.
I would just round up with, what may be bad grades to one child may not be bad grades to another. So I think Barbara already mentioned, let's identify, as a parent, maybe you want to identify with your child, what's their goal? What do they hope to achieve? And then, like Miss Brew said, get together and make a plan of how they can go about achieving that goal, and then work with the teachers and the school. It's a partnership, so the child, the parent, the teachers together can support the child to reach the goal that they want to set for themselves. If it's something that is more emotional or psychological, then that will require some different level of intervention. If you have a student that they're trying everything, but still they're having issues of maybe low self-esteem, or so it will take some additional support to interrogate what actually the challenge is.
Excellent. I just want to probably add to that representation matters. So it's really important that you provide that young person with information that they're not alone, and that they're not the only one experiencing that. So maybe set up a support group in your school, because there will be other children, and they may not have a diagnosis of dyslexia, but they're struggling with their academics. So maybe set up a support group where they can come together once a month, once a week, whatever, and just talk about what areas they're struggling in and what support can be put in place, and share strategies of how they manage, because children are very creative in how they adapt to those kind of situations and what they do to cope with those situations. So when they can share it with each other, that's really, really helpful. But it's really important that they understand that they are not alone, that they are not that different to other children in their school, in their class, and that people struggle with education in different ways. And so the support is available to them, so they can access their school counsellor, you know, their mentor, their class teacher, and they can get support, and they know that there's a safe adult that they can tap into. So we have time to take just 2 more questions. I'm so sorry if we don't get a chance to do your question. We have been overwhelmed by how many questions you guys have, and it just really speaks to how important this conversation is, and the fact that we actually need to do more, because there are so many of you who really want to unpack this. And I can see from the commentary that there are so many of you that really want to do the very best for the students that you're working with, and that you and do the best for your child that you're parenting. So we will definitely have to make sure that we can find more time to address the questions that you've put in. So we'll have 2 more questions, and then I'm so sad to say that we'll have to bring it to a close. So let's see what the next question is. Hi, Miss Rosa.
Hi, ladies. This is going so well. We have some questions here, and that one that is so close, and I really want you guys to address is, I can't find it in the comment, but we jotted it down earlier on. It says, can a child who have ADHD also have dyslexia? And how does it manifest?
So the short answer is yes. The short answer is yes, they absolutely can. So we have co-concurrent disabilities. So one child could have ADHD, have autism, and be dyslexic. Absolutely. So that's the short answer, and I'll hand over to the ladies to expand.
Okay, I think you've answered the question. It would just be to say that each of them would probably require their own specific diagnosis. So you may see traits or signs that something is manifesting. But again, we would encourage, let's not jump to conclusions, but let's go through the proper process. So there is a assessment by a qualified assessor, and that they're able to really explain what is going on and then point you in the right direction for the right interventions to support your child. So I'll just add that bit.
Okay, so this is our last question now. How do parents talk to their dyslexic kids to let them understand what they are going through in a way that empowers the child, especially in a case where they are afraid they might get bullied, etc.? So do you want to take that, Barbara?
Okay, so I think this will come to the third topic that I treated, cultivating empathy and patience as a parent. So in this instance, we need to feel how our child feels when they get to school. Then we'll be able to know that, okay, this is the situation my child is facing. With that in mind, we don't brush off their feelings and say that we will overcome it. But this is a situation that we'll be able to, like I said, you should have that kind of rapport with your child, for your child to feel that if you do this for me, or if you come and we are able to speak to my teachers and my peers and we advocate for accommodations in the class, I might not be bullied. Probably through this, there'll be awareness in the school as well. And so we can have the children researching on the dyslexic itself, for them to come and have presentation on it, and it become a creating awareness for the whole students, not for one person, for them to know that it's not a disease, for them to know the challenges that goes with it, and for them to identify that this particular learner will have a special skill and talent. And so when we are doing a project in class, the students will be able to spearhead that particular project. With that, they feel very included when they are in the school space. They feel that, okay, when it comes to reading, there are accommodations for me. My teacher and my parents are working towards to art. When it comes to music, my friends know that I can also have my shining moment. With that, it's going to make the child feel very comfortable. So let's encourage our children to identify the areas in which they do well outside the academic space. When they do that, then parents, we have the positive affirmations. So we know that, okay, this is what you are good at. I saw you playing this particular instrument. You did very well. Why don't you try it when you go to church? You can play it in the teens church. When you come to stand there having worship, I can talk to your teacher if you can do that. With that, the child knows that he's also contributing when it comes to their peers. He's contributing to the school environment. So identifying the things that they are good at, encouraging them to keep doing it, assigning them for after school programs, encouraging them never to give up, letting them read about stories of people who have been diagnosed as dyslexic and how they have been able to become successful in society. Once we show these things to the child knows that, wow, then there's something in me that I can achieve in life. Then we work it from there. Then we are able to also educate the other learners in the class so that they don't look down upon anyone in the classroom space. This will help our children to be very empowered in the school space. Thank you.
I don't think there's anything I can add to that.
Brilliant. I think one of the things that's really important to let dyslexic young people know is building their self-esteem and building their confidence in who they are, getting them to understand that actually there are going to be people that will ridicule, that will make fun, but teaching them strategies to manage that and navigate that. So if people make jokes about you, this is how you can respond, and do role play, like Barbara talked about earlier on. Do role play. So if somebody was to say this about you, what would you say? You know, if somebody made this kind of comment, how would you respond? Because getting children to be able to navigate the meanness of other children and sometimes the adults around them will really put them in a strong position to navigate those things. So I see a question has popped. Oh gosh, we've got quite a few questions. We said that was our last one. Vida, my child is already 16, even though he's not been tested. After listening to a program a month ago, I realized my son shows the same symptoms. How do I approach the situation? Let's get your son screened. And then if it shows that he needs to be tested, let's get him tested. But in the meantime, start to speak to your child's teachers around what can you do together to help him? How can you help him navigate schoolwork, homework? And start to speak to your son to find out what is it that he finds difficult, what's the areas, and what does he think he needs help with? What would he like the help to look like? To start to have those conversations first, but get him screened. And then if it shows that he does need to have a formal diagnosis, then get him diagnosed. Okay, so I'm so sad to say we've come to the end. Miss Rosa, you here to do closing?
I really want us to close. The questions are so many, and so ladies, we need to do this again and again and again. But this question here is about fear, and I want to see if our counselors can give a little advice before we close up here.
Okay, so it's saying, please, how can I handle a child that has developed fear in writing? Do we attribute such to dyslexia, and how can we help such a child? So I would start by saying, how is this fear manifesting? How are you able to identify that the child actually has a fear of writing? I think that would be the first thing as a counsellor that we would want to really kind of understand, to make sure the problem we see is actually the problem. Because sometimes maybe the child is avoiding writing, but that's not actually the problem. So that's what we would probably spend our first initial meeting trying to understand where this is coming from. And then from there, it would be, you know, okay, has this been identified by maybe other teachers? I'm assuming this is in the school. Is there another teacher that's also identified it, or is it just in one class? And yeah, you know, initially you're going to have to understand where this challenge is coming from, and before you can even look at how to help the child. Because as I said, it may not actually be a fear of writing. Maybe it's a challenge with the class teacher, the subject. It could be a number of different reasons. And I think Justina already identified that if we're screening the child to see that, okay, maybe there is an issue here, then you can send them off for formal assessment. So there would be the screening that would come before the formal assessment that you can do to identify whether they do have a challenge with dyslexia. So I don't know if you want to add anything else, Barbara?
Sam, that's okay. Thank you.
I just want to add really quickly from an education point of view, find other ways to introduce writing and to make writing fun. If writing is associated with fear because the fear centers around failing, try and introduce ways in a non-threatening way. And it also really will depend on the age of the child. So if it's a young child, are there other ways that they can learn those skills? Can they do more activities, you know, like painting with water, writing in sand, like making marks in sand, using different things to mark make, or things that are fun, you know. And we call dojim. We have a strategy called dojim. So where you allow the child to exercise, do some manipulative exercise before you ask them to do some writing, because sometimes there might be a physical reason that is hindering the writing, and that is also contributing towards the fear. So can they do any kind of sensory, you know, playing with dough before they write, or any manipulative thing to help release the blood in the fingers so that they're more supple and more prone to holding a pen or a pencil or whatever? Or can you get adapted pens, you know, pens that may be bigger, or pencils that may be bigger, that help with the grasp? So they're practical things that you can look at as well to make it more fun in what they're doing. And don't forget, writing doesn't just involve pen and a utensil. You know, can they communicate in writing using a laptop or a tablet? Are there other ways that they can show what they know so that you don't have to reinforce that fear that they're experiencing? So I think that sign says we are at the end, right?
Yes, we are at the
Or
end.
did you have another question?
No, the questions are so much, and I don't even know which one I'm choosing for us to leave the rest. And so some of the questions, we will develop it into topics and treat it in our next series that we will have. A lot of you are asking where you could find the recording of this after the program. It will be on our YouTube channel. We also have it on Facebook and LinkedIn. Please go there and make sure you share with educators, share with parents, share with your friends so that they can learn. It's Happy Dyslexia Month, and we say happy because if you are aware of it, then that means a child is going to receive a support, an adult at the workplace is going to receive a support. So for us, that is Happy Dyslexia Awareness Month. What we will do here is for all our facilitators, they've done so well to give us a closing remarks of their thoughts for today and what they are leaving you with. And make sure you follow us on all our social media platforms to stay informed about our events, our programs, so that you don't miss anything else. So ladies, please give your last moment and then we will close off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. I just want to say that it's great to be part of this Dyslexia Awareness Month webinar. I'm really passionate about, just giving children and parents the opportunity to be aware see where we can offer support. It was great to see so many questions in the comments, and I look forward to being part of this again to maybe treat some of the additional questions that came up. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience, and thank you to all of you who joined in.
Okay, parents, educators, thank you for joining this webinar. So as we create awareness, we know that there's going to be more education on it. It's become an eye opener, and we'll be able to ask more questions when we go to our children's school. With that in mind, we know that our learners and our children will come out of school successful and happy and always want to go into that school space. We are creating a supportive environment, and we are working as partners. So anything you feel you need to let us know, you can reach out to ADO, you can reach out to any of us, and we'll give you the necessary support. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just an encouragement. You have a choice. As parents, your home can be a place of peace or a place of torment. School, your classroom can be a place of learning or a place of torment. You have a choice about what kind of environment you're going to create. And so it's really important that you take ownership and you take responsibility, and you do everything in your power to help your young person with dyslexia or your young person who's struggling with academics so that they can thrive. And the way to do that is by what you put in and how you help them, which is what this whole webinar has been about. So thank you for your time. As the ladies have said, it's been amazing. Your questions are amazing. And I'm looking forward to us being able to tackle more off this channel and give you all the support and information that you need. So have a wonderful evening. And I really look forward to our next one. And I hope you'll all be able to join us and more. Make sure you invite your friends and your family and your colleagues. So our contact details are on the screen, where you can get in touch with us individually. But you could also use the Africa Dyslexia Organization website. So it's www.africadyslexia.org. Did I say that right? I always get it wrong. So yeah, those are there. Have a wonderful evening. Do you want to closing words then, Miss Rosa?
I feel you have done it. You've closed us up. I just want to wish them all the best. Parents, don't give up on your child. And teachers, you're there to make life, create and support life and not kill life. This is what I leave with you. If you look in our comment sessions, we have put in a form there. We are looking for our dyslexic champions, whether they are young, they are adults. Please, the form, use it to fill. If you believe as an adult you are dyslexic and you have not even been diagnosed, we want to hear from you. We want to know the best ways that we can bring you programs that will be beneficial to you. And so we wish you happy Dyslexia Awareness Month. And please, next 2 weeks, on the 14th of October, we have a 4-panel session of dyslexic adults. So as a parent, as a teacher, please come and tune in and listen to how these people who never received support were able to make it in life. There is hope for everyone. So we encourage you to always visit our pages and to learn more about our programs. And we have also posted the NESI training. It's actually a paid training, and they're giving it for free for Dyslexia Awareness Month. NESI is one of the partners ADO works with. They're giving it for free. We posted the link in the chat. Please, it's for teachers and parents. Go spend 2 hours and soak in some knowledge. We wish you all the best, and bye-bye.